Good evening, everybody. Good evening indeed. Welcome to another race evening, I should say, here on Absolute Sim Racing, and welcome to the Race Anywhere World Series, the Porsche Cup, the US split of this wonderful, wonderful championship. And welcome to Donington Park, a circuit that really hosts phenomenal racing in these Porsche Cup cars. My name is Chaz Draycott, and I'm delighted to say that alongside me once again this evening for some more wonderful American Porsche fun is a very American gentleman, Austin Belkey. Austin, how are we?
Hey Chaz, I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing very, very well, thank you, mate. Now, obviously, this circuit over in good old Blighty, a long, long way from yourself, but still, it's a circuit that's actually very well known, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I've raced here several times in iRacing. I got to say, it's one of my more favorite circuits. I like it a lot, all the dips and bends, and especially the fast chicane there on the back stretch. It should be, or front stretch in this case, should be a really fun race today.
It really should indeed, and of course, just to remind you of the format, everybody, the grid will be in the reverse standings in the championship per class. So we'll have our pro drivers at the front, we'll have our pro-am drivers in the middle, and then we will have our am drivers at the back of the pack. But they will be in reverse championship order, so those that are at the top of the pile will be at the back of their class. We will then have a 1 hour and 15-minute race. Pit stops going to be crucial around here. It's quite a high speed circuit here, isn't it, Austin? So it's going to be a bit of a tyre killer for some of these drivers.
Yeah, especially with the amount of high-speed corners we have here, and a lot of these are also over elevation changes, so whenever the car is going to get really light, you have to really, ask a lot out of the tires on these cars to kind of carry the drivers around the circuit. So I expect a lot of tire wear in this race. I feel like the driver that does the best is going to be the driver that does the best at conserving their tires.
And fuel saving isn't really going to be anything that they can do around here. I mean, while there is the back straight going down to that final chicane, there is a bit of slipstreaming you can do there. With the speeds these cars do, you can't really do any saving there. It's not quite like it's the Kemmel straight at Spa-Francorchamps, for example. You barely get enough of a run, really, to make a solid overtake. So it really is all about the tyres, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, exactly. Just to add on to that point about saving fuel, I mean, there's some elevation changes here, so you can kind of lift and coast as you go down the hill. But for the most part, when you're going down, you're pretty much off the throttle anyways. I'm not quite sure how it is in these cars, specifically with the different setups they have and in the aero kit that they have, and they're running exclusively. But there isn't a whole lot of opportunity now.
No, there certainly is not. And of course, with it being a very, very short lap here, just over a minute long, the times are very close indeed. The top three covered by less than a tenth of a second. We look at Elvis Rankin right now of Apex Racing Team. Dino Filippo is the next car ahead of him for Uris Racing in the number 99 machine, and he is only 79 thousandths off Michael Yanni, the Apex Racing Academy driver. In the Pro-Ams, in the blue class on the left-hand side, it is Tenorio that is second fastest at the moment in the Twisted Racing red machine. Oscar Fias in the Mexico E-Racing car is currently top of the pile there. Logan Vida for Team Prema is top of the AM class. Andrew Hewson is the highest placed driver out of them that is currently on track in third. But to be honest, the inter-class battles are going to be very, very close here, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on that, like you said, again, you look at the pro category, first and third separated by less than a tenth of a second. You go look at your pro-am category, and the first four drivers are just barely separated by over 1/4 of a second. And then if you go ahead and look at the am category, your top five drivers are separated by less than 1/4 of a second. So, and these times are also really close to one another as well. I mean, you look at, there's only 0.7 seconds separating the pro driver from the pro-am driver, at least on the top. And then from pro-am to am, there's only about 1/4 of a second, so it's going to be really hard to make passes, and even harder to make passes of drivers in different classes.
And with this being such a high-speed circuit as well, I've been watching for about an hour of this practice and warm-up session that they've all been having, and to be honest with you, it's pretty impressive that so many of them can make so many mistakes, but then when it comes to the race, they'll be absolutely spot on. A lot of them really dial it in practice, don't they, and push the limits, because a number of them have been spinning around here. It's a very slippery little car, this Porsche, and at high-speed tracks like this, it's not always the most comfortable, as we see there.
Yeah, Dino Filippo with quite the pit entrance there. That's what you can do when you have about 7,000 I ratings. Pretty good good show of skill from him to kind of get that car slowed down into the pits. But yeah, these drivers really know how to race around at only about 90% pace compared to practice when you're just kind of pushing, leaving it all out there.
They are indeed. And now it is time for our grid. Straight on into it then. James Pearce will take pole position with Harry Wills alongside him on the front row in the Pro class. Then it's Jonathan Roulette and Dino Filippo. Elvis Rankin and Michael Yanni make it an all-Apex row 3. Dean Timms then is ahead of Andrew Rasmussen. Stephen Martinez is ahead of Jeremy Littleton in the Pro-Ams. Then it's Bruno Alcaraz, Jos Garfias, John Cooper and Daniel Tenorio, the back of the Pro-Am drivers. Then it's Travis Kepler ahead of Jason Bridges with Andrew Hewson and Joseph Smith on row 2 of the Am drivers. Then it's Daniel Florea and Drew Neubauer in 6th place, followed by Michael Kulaga, Eric Kulaga, Logan Vida, Casey Metzger and Errol Uriksoy in the Twisted Racing White Machine at the back. We've seen some pretty good stuff from a number of the drivers in that Am class particularly this season. Some really good drives through the field. But to be honest, here, like you said, it's going to be very difficult to overtake, isn't it? Especially with the pace being so close.
Yeah, I mean, it's a high-speed course, so you're following a guy by only a couple of tenths of a second just behind him. It's kind of hard to see all the apexes, especially when the track will change direction so fast. You're making a couple left-handers, then making a right-hander, and those right-handers are so important to just trimming off the time on your lap. If you make a single mistake, you're going to be hurting yourself for a couple seconds.
Yes, indeed. The old hairpin at the bottom of the hill, a very, very paramount corner of this circuit to get right. It counts all the way up the hill towards McLean's, which is the long, long right-hander where we will see a lot of dive bombs this evening before the drivers then head up to Coppice and then into the final chicane down here. Usually there is a Grand Prix loop on this circuit, but more often than not they will use the national layout. It's shorter, more feisty, and usually more entertaining. We've got the 2 Twisted Racing drivers of James Pearce and Harry Wills about to lead us away then to get 1 hour and 15 minutes of racing underway. We've got the pro drivers splitting away from the Pro-Ams. The lights come on, they get ready to go. They're all holding the brakes, ready to get their foot down. And we are away in the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup of the United States. And they fan out instantly there. Michael Yanni trying to go around the outside of just about everybody. Senna style using the pit lane there. And look at that, Elvis Rankin squeezing his way up the inside. Lovely stuff. Michael Yanni gets a cutback. He goes through as well. Pro-Am's coming to turn 1 now, Austin.
Yeah, Dean Timms out uncontested into turn 1 here, just like we saw the driver in the pro category do. You can see that's Rasmussen just barely around the outside, almost able to make something work, but Jeremy Littleton just behind him in third place in the category. Right now, as we should be able to jump into our AM category to see how their race is just starting. Travis Kepler on pole.
Yes, indeed. Travis keeps it nice and tidy. Bruno Alcaraz and Daniel Tenorio have had trouble in the Pro-Ams. We will come back to that, but a nice start by Travis Kepler. Just ahead of Jason Bridges. Andrew Hewson trying to go down the inside of him. He makes that stick. Joseph Smith goes through there as well. We've also got Jeremy Littleton going off at McLean's. We also had Bruno Alcaraz and Daniel Tenorio, as mentioned, having their little problem. Travis Kepler's lost it. Kepler is off at the old hairpin, and he is around, and the lead is going to change twice over because Joseph
I think there was contact actually to the back end of Kepler by Andrew Hewson there from his Twisted Racing Porsche.
Oh yeah, he has absolutely headbutted him all the way to the old hairpin. I was going to say it looked like he was a long way off the road as well, and he certainly was. But at the very front, it's James Pearce leading the way then. Harry Wills in second, or he is for now. He's clipped the grass on the left-hand side on the way to the old hairpin, and straight on he goes into the bottom of the class. And with it being a smaller class, I think that's just gone even worse for Harry. It has. With it being such a small class of only 6 cars, you can go first to last just like that, can't you, Austin?
Yeah, exactly. It looked like he locked up his front axle just before he made entrance into the turn, kind of got off on the grass. See Andrew Rasmussen. Andrew probably said the same thing. Might be able to get a replay of that. And there, of course, was Harry there just on the opposite side of the track. He's still trying to make his way back on. Lots of sportsmanship, though, in that move, kind of making sure no one else is behind him. He's going to run the race to the other drivers.
Yeah, there you go. You were right. It was just the tiniest little lock-up from Harry Wills on the way in. Just as the car changes its weight from left to right, down the Craner curves into the old hairpin, and then as soon as he tries to get back on the power, the back end does not want to cooperate. Joseph Smith still leads in the AM class then, 2.5 minutes gone already. Feels like an absolute blink of an eye as we've got more battling going on here. Daniel Fleuret just made a bit of a mistake there up the hill into McLean's, and making another one is Eric Kilaga, who has gone around.
Yeah, I just barely saw that out of the last camera angle. Looks like he just tried to put his foot down a little bit too hard, a little bit too fast, had too much wheel in the car, kind of just spun the rear end of his machine out there. Eric is one of the best passers in the league, certainly going to set him back a little bit, but I'm sure we'll see him back in the front.
Big hit there for James Pearce. He's now gone off from the overall race lead. Not sure if he had any help on the way up there, but he had Elvis Rankin right with him. Oh, he's broken a bit earlier than expected. Car steps out. He overcorrects it and goes flying off into the barriers, and that is going to be a very frustrated James Pearce right now for Twisted Racing. But it's car 1 P1 once again, car 2 P2 once again, which is Michael Yanni and Elvis Rankin, but in the other order. With Dino Filippa, it's definitely not car 99 P99. He is P3 chasing these guys down.
Yeah, very much just wrong end of a bad deal there for Pearce. I have to assume that Elvis didn't mean to do that. Just kind of got into the corner a little bit too hot, a little bit maybe hotter than James was expecting there. And of course, if you're the leader, you're kind of backing off your pace. You don't want to push the car too hard, make a mistake yourself, and at that point, just not maybe so much a mistake out of Elvis, but just that's short track racing, I guess.
Yeah, it is indeed. It's so easy to get it wrong up into there on the brakes, because you are managing how the car is behaving. You're swooping it round to the left to then get it set up to go to the right. It's not an easy place to be. Well, we have drivers in the pits already. Harry Wills has dropped out too, unfortunately. Looks like it's close for the lead of the AM class though. Joseph Smith just ahead of Andrew Hewson, who we look at now in the Twisted Racing blue machine, chasing him down in car number 40 down the hill.
Yeah, that's right, Chaz. I've been keeping my eye on this battle for a while. Joe keeps making a couple little tiny mistakes, and Andrew just gets a little bit closer and closer every time he does that. And they're not huge mistakes. It's, maybe like an inch more track, being used, for one driver versus the other. Maybe some mid-corner speed deficit there. But you can just see, Andrew has such a better line through that one corner in particular. And it's kind of like that all the way around the track. And it's just so hard to pass her. You have to be faster by a couple tenths of a second off the driver ahead of you, rather than just the 1 or 2 that Andrew is right now over Joe.
Yeah, definitely. There has to be quite a considerable difference to get any sort of move done. Daniel Fleuret, just behind this, has just had a moment. He was third in class, and he just goes straight up the hill at McLean's. Long slide through the gravel, and he manages to recover without any damage, but of course loses a position. But still.
Yeah, great job to keep control of that car, though. Usually it's very easy, especially in cars like this where it's so light, rear-wheel drive, all the weight's at the back of the car to just slip slide around. Like we saw Harry Wills do earlier, just kind of get all discombobulated and the wrong way.
Yeah, indeed. It's a very slippery little sausage, is this car. Does like to step out. It may have that humongous wing on it. It may have canards and a splitter and diffuser and all sorts on it, but doesn't mean that it's completely indestructible. Now, this is the battle for the lead in the Pro-Am category. So this is the top 3 in class. Dean Timms leading Jos Garfias, who sends one up the inside. John Cooper's got a bird's eye view of this one, you could say. Sitting in 3rd position. He gets to watch this in the Turnburn Moto car, watching Jos Garfias have a real go, but a lot of movement on the wheel as they go down the hill here. Like I say, they really are balancing this car as Drew Neubauer has gone off circuit there to the left.
Yeah, very unfortunate there for Drew, and just exactly like you mentioned there, Chaz, these cars are so light on the wheels all the time. You really do have to kind of mess with the wheel, back and forth. Look at just how many inputs he's having to put in the wheel on all these corners, just back to the left, back to the right, right, left, a ton of corrections through each of these corners. And it's not just when they're pushing right now, fighting for a position. It is all the time with these cars. They're on the very ragged edge.
They certainly are. And just looking now, whoa, John Cooper really closing in on the brakes there for a second. Jos Garfias has got a fantastic run out of that final chicane, attacking the back of Dean Timms. These guys are just on the outer fringes of the top 5. That's a bit naughty from Jos. Oh, it's even naughtier from Dean. He didn't need to squeeze him like that, and he's going to come straight back onto the circuit. Oh, just about missing contact there. I mean, Jos didn't have to go off the road to do that, but Dean didn't need to squeeze him even more. That was a little bit cheeky from both of them there in my books.
Yeah, I can't imagine the stewards are going to be too pleased with that one. Good job by Yasso to at least get the car slowed down so he didn't enter the track and take either of these drivers out. But certainly not the kind of move you wanted to see, and I completely agree. Yas didn't have to do that, but Dean certainly didn't have to push him off the track like that either. And you're going to see it. Maybe that's a little bit of karma right there. Dean locking up the brakes, going to hand the lead over to John Cooper there, and he might just be able to scoot away with this one.
Yeah, indeed. He will certainly turn and burn right now for John Cooper. He lights the afterburners, pulls back on the stick, and off he goes. At the very front of the field, though, it is still Elvis Rankin leading the way for Apex Racing Team. But for how long, if he's going to do a bit of that there, a bit of grass tracking on the exit of Redgate. Down the Craner curves we go. Dino Filippa is now up into second place, ahead of Michael Yanni. I'm going to see if I can find where he did that. Here it is. Oh, he's actually just got it down the inside on the way into turn one. And he's just got the superior exit. Michael gives him plenty of room. And they stay side by side, but then the overlap is gone by the time they get to the Craners. You don't want to go side by side down the Craner curves, do you?
No, you really don't. It's hard enough to take these cars down there single file, much less double file. I wouldn't even want to do that in a GT car with how much downforce those things have. So very smart driving by both those guys. And that turn one, turn three complex of all just right-handers is so long. If you're on the inside of a guy, you pretty much have the pass made already, as long as you don't over-rotate the car and not put the throttle down when you need to. So it's pretty much a done deal at that point. We'll see if Dino can do anything here with Elvis now that he's caught up to him. He's been catching him quite a bit over the last couple laps. I'll be interested to see if this is maybe Elvis has a little bit of a lack of pace. Maybe Dino just has a better car right now. Maybe he's just all down to tire conservation.
And just behind them as well, Michael Yanni's just on the fastest lap of the race. Dino Filippa basically doing an almost identical time to him. So they're both on the pace compared to Elvis right now. 0.6 of a second faster than him last time round. You can hear the fantastic noise, though, of that 4-litre, 6-cylinder, flat 6 engine in the back of this Porsche, screaming its way and powering Elvis around this circuit up to Coppice. Very difficult corner to get right. Flat down on the power now, controls it well. Rasmussen has just gone off. I'm not sure how much help he got there, but it looked like there was certainly a bit of intermission.
The door handle action for sure, yeah.
This is Tenorio trying to come back through the field, because don't forget he was off at the start of the race. Jeremy Littleton is in that beautiful Gulf-coloured machine in front of him that Austin and I are both massive fans of. So hopefully it doesn't get any knocks or dings in the door or anything right now from Tenorio. But Daniel starting at the back of his class needs to go forward, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. Let's also, not forget, too, that Jeremy did start up front. He had a little bit of an off track in the earlier parts of this race, so he's kind of just hanging on for a top 5 right now. But, yeah, Daniel's one of the fastest guys in this league, for sure, in this category. Really good at passing cars, too, and he knows when to do it and how much force and pressure to apply. And he also knows the stakes of this little sprint race right now because, of course, you can earn points in this race just to have to pass all these guys again. So you really want to be nice to everyone when you pass them, because if you're mean to them right now, they're going to do everything they can to block you in the later, longer race of the night.
Yeah, I have to clarify as well that I got the wrong end of the stick with the format for this evening. Obviously, they do change up the format in the championship. We have had 1 hour, 15-minute races before, but they do obviously have the sprint race format as well. So all of the tyre conservation stuff we spoke about before, completely out the window. But Daniel Tenorio has gone through, and that is the fact of the matter right now. Now then, this is another fact of the matter, and this is some sort of mess with the pro drivers coming through past some of the AM drivers. Michael Yanni's still got to negotiate Eric Kulaga, I believe that is, with Casey Metzger all over the back of him. The two of them right together. Casey can't quite fit the car down the inside. But this top 3, coming back to these guys, still very, very close together for the overall podium.
Yeah, this top 3, the top 2 in the Pro-Am category, and then like you mentioned just a second ago, the top 3 in the AM category as well. I've had my eye on the AM battle here for a while, and still pretty well spread out, just very much like the Pro category, but a lot of battles all the way up and down through all these classes.
And a nice friendly bit of traffic there, just moving over to one side to let these guys go through. But Dino Filippa looking very potent right now behind Elvis Rankin. It's great to watch racing like this compared to, oh, hello, that's the number 5 of Casey Metzger having a full-on 360. I was just going to say it's nice to see racing like this where the drivers can go flat out in a sprint scenario as opposed to the longer endurance races, because sometimes they are a little bit reserved in those formats, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. It kind of just, it changed the attitude of the entire race.
Yeah, it definitely does. You see these drivers really sending it, really balancing the car, chucking it into every corner wherever they can. Speaking of doing that, John Cooper's now having to defend from Jos Garfias, who's having his second attempt at taking the lead of this class, but this time it's not Dean Timms in front of him. It's the big, well, you'd call it magenta machine, the Turnburn Moto car.
I'd be okay with calling it a pink. I feel like it's a dark pink, maybe a hot pink, but
yeah,
for sure. I mean, look at what Jos is able to do, though, with kind of a banged-up car ever since he got in the wall on the right side. You can still see it's banged up, so obviously having to wheel that machine, it kind of makes me wonder just how much pace he'd have if his car wasn't damaged at all. Could be, of course, only cosmetic damage at the moment, but look at that move. What a power move right there on the inside of one of these corners. Very hard to set up a pass like that, but he made it look easy.
Yeah, indeed. Lovely, lovely stuff. Made sure he got a good cutback out of the old hairpin. Oh, excuse me. Down the inside. That didn't really give us too much, did it, really? But up to McLean's. Managed to set it up down the inside. Parked it on the apex. Made sure that there was no way John Cooper could come back from that one. John's stuck with him, though. He's not disappeared out of the rearview mirror, but just not able to get the pass done yet. And Dino Filippo has taken the race lead.
Same thing he did to Gianni right behind him for the second place. Just kind of gets to the inside. Once, of course, he's got it that much the way down. I don't think Elvis is going to put up too much of a fight.
A little bit of contact down the inside unsettles Elvis's car, but now we've got 2 against 1, really, because we've got the Apex Racing team car of Elvis Rankin, the young American, with Michael Yanni in the Apex Racing Academy, both trying to team up on Dino here. Dino's got the inside line into the chicane. Michael's going to have to take a back seat for a second as Elvis makes sure he's got the priority line. And look at that. Yanni loses a lot of time there, but Elvis now suddenly tucked back up behind the rear wing of Dino Filippo's car, nearly pushing him into turn 1, tries to get a cutback. Car bounces over the curb, slides sideways. Fantastic racing. Great to watch these Porsches dance around.
Yeah, it is. You can see Dino take a little bit of a kind of a defensive line going into one there, trying to at least, arc his car so that Elvis couldn't do it quite enough behind him, but Elvis was almost able to pull the old over-under and kind of get his nose just barely inside of Dino, so he'd kind of have to back out and at least get him the space, but Dino did a really good job getting through 1 and 2 that time.
He did indeed. Very, very tidy indeed. Garfias continues to lead in the Pro-Am class. Andrew Hewson not too far ahead of Logan Vida, as you see here, for the top of the AM category. These guys were battling early on, and they've certainly not spread out either, have they?
No, I mean, it wasn't Andrew Hewson, one of the guys that ended up making a little mistake earlier today. And look, now he's in the lead of the AM category, so it just kind of tells you how many times that in one single race everything can kind of flop on its head.
Certainly can. Roll the dice and just see who comes out on the top, really. As just ahead of them, Bruno Alcaraz and Andrew Rasmussen have just swapped around. Rasmussen going through down the inside in the number 11 car. He obviously got some help earlier on in the race when he went off at the old hairpin. But still, Dino Filippo, with less than 5 minutes to go, holds on at the very front of this race, just about to Elvis Rankin. They're using all of the road and some around here, aren't they? It's an old school circuit where it's not very it's not very unforgiving. It's not very forgiving because there's no runoff or anything here. Maybe the odd big curb, but that's about it. Other than that, it's just grass.
No, yeah, you're very much correct there. You can see those curbs on the inside and outside, but they don't really do much to kind of keep you on the track. They just kind of tell you where the limits are, and if you want to maximize the lap time like these guys are, you can see what line they're taking. The right sides go all the way to the right side to the curb, and the left side tires go all the way to the left side to the curb. You're going to see that when they go into turn 1 here. Look at that, just cutting through the chicane. They're not leaving too much, barely even taking the sausage curbs, and you can see when they go back down onto the straightaway, they're putting the edge of their tires right on the edge of the rumble strip there, so they're not leaving anything up to chance.
No, definitely not. Sometimes these cars really do like to bounce around, so maybe the sausage curb's just a little bit too aggressive for them. We've had, unfortunately, Andrew Rasmussen go off the road and into the pits, so we're going to have a look at this. This is the earlier move on Bruno Alcaraz, so apologies. This is him going off just a moment ago into the old hairpin. Oh, started to lose the back end. Hits the gravel on the outside of the corner, and he then jumps to the pits, I'm afraid. Michael Kulaga has just been off the road as well, and still is off the road. Comes back on. a bit hesitantly, but I think he was just waiting for some of the top guys to go through. Still this lead trio, though, very entertaining to watch. And still Dino Filippo, the Argentine driver, leading all of them so far. John Cooper has gone off the road after leading the class earlier. He's done basically the same thing at the old hairpin. But that's one of those corners, isn't it, where it invites you in to push really hard, and if it does go wrong, it goes wrong big time.
Yeah, exactly. I've done that numerous times practicing for some of the GT3 races around here for the VRS Endurance Series, and it just invites you to go on a little bit faster and faster and pushing more off the corner. When you finally do push too much, it just puts your car nose first into that tire wall there. And even though it is tires, might look a little soft, it's one of the harder tire walls on the iRacing service. We see another driver just ahead of these guys go off. Not quite sure who that was, but just another driver that got it all wrong. Almost spun out going into that corner, coming out of it rather, but was lucky enough to not make any contact.
Yeah, Errol Uriksoy as well, one of the highest placed drivers in the AM Championship. So he really doesn't want to make mistakes like that, as Casey Metzger and Eric Kulaga have a very scary moment. I think Casey's gone around as well. He does. Kulaga went off the road. Metzger went to avoid it. Wow, that was a scary one. Let's have a look at this again, Austin. Oh, actually, he's already gone off at that point, so bear with me, and we will.
Not quite sure what would have caused both these drivers to kind of go off separate. Oh, looks like it was just kind of a little bit of door handle action, kind of one driver leading on another, and Michael goes to get back on the track. Could have been Eric Kulaga probably goes to get back on the track. And in this case, he tries to avoid him a little bit too much wheel in the car, trying to give him a little bit too much space. But these cars are going too fast to just change direction like that.
They are indeed very, very quick indeed, these cars, but they do certainly float along on top of the surface, almost like a duck skimming water when it lands. They've not quite got the traction they want, but either way, it's fantastic to watch them, and Filippo still leads us. He'll have probably one lap to go after this. It's going to be cutting it very close.
You know who they're catching though, Chaz? They're catching the podium for the AM category, and I doubt they're going to want to make any kind of headway to let these guys through if you're an AM driver, because you're kind of fighting for the podium. So it's kind of in your best interest to kind of fend them off, and maybe see if you don't fend them off, if you can kind of follow them through, maybe sneak one or two positions more on the podium.
Well, and all those three drivers are within a second of one another as well. There you see it. So the three of them don't want to give anything up. We've got 15 seconds to go when they cross the line. So this final lap could be very, very interesting right now. Filippo leads from Rankin and Yanni. In front of them, we've got Vida, Hewson and Smith. Garfias leads the way in the Pro-Am category ahead of Timms and Tenorio. A couple of seconds between each of them. But right now, Dino Filippo needs to just nail this final lap and not get held up by this traffic. I'm not sure it's going to be that straightforward, though, Austin.
No, definitely not. I think right now, if you're Joe Smith, you're going to want to do everything in your power to not let him by easily. And if he does get let by, you kind of want to follow him in case he makes any kind of move on Andrew Hewson in second place. You can see. He forced him off the track right there a little bit. Kind of got in his head, and that's going to open the door for Elvis Rankin just behind him.
Well, I think Joseph went to go to the inside, and actually Dino made contact with him, give him a push one way, then the other. But Dino, at the end of the day, he's not got the time to waste on that. He can't wait around and just let Elvis close up behind him. I don't think it's going to be enough now for Elvis to get the move done to take the win. You never know, though. He's good at getting these cutbacks, is Elvis Rankin. He does get some sort of run on it, but Dino Filippo is going to take the checkered flag and the win from Elvis Rankin and Michael Yanni. A fantastic drive from all three of them. Very, very enjoyable race. Dino Filippo straight out the car, so clearly not the biggest fan of that one. Jos Garfias, though, is going to come home and take the Pro-Am win by the look of it. He's got a good 4 seconds over the drivers behind him.
Yeah, great job by Jos here to get all the damage on the right side of his car, fighting for the lead, come back, take the lead, win the race by over about 4 seconds over Dan Tenorio, a fast driver even in his own right. And how about Jeremy Littleton making a mistake earlier on, coming home for a podium finish, then just behind these guys by about a couple more seconds, going to be your AM category, and you can just see what the pace difference was from the pro drivers to the AM drivers. Almost enough to lap them in about 20 minutes, but not enough to make a pass easy, as we saw. I wouldn't be too surprised if Dino's win isn't taken away here.
Yeah, indeed. It was certainly an interesting moment, but we saw it earlier on where some of the quicker drivers can break later into there. They can really balance the car on the way in. But unfortunately, the AM driver's not able to do so. But Logan Vida for Team Premac takes the win from Andrew Hewson. Errol Uriksoy was classified in 3rd place in the end. And what a race we had there. That was a hell of a lot of fun. A very, very quick sprint around Donington Park. plenty of action for us to look at. And to be honest, I'm quite a fan of a sprint format like that. That was certainly an entertaining one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly makes the drivers, have a little bit more of a sense of urgency to kind of go up there and make all the positions they can. And of course, that does mean the higher you get in the sprint race, you have to start further back in the longer race in just a couple short minutes.
Yes, indeed. It will be upon us very, very soon. So we'll just quickly go over the results of that previous race. The very top of the standings, Dino Filippa takes the win. Just over a tenth of a second, though, from Elvis Rankin. Just over half a second ahead of Michael Yanni, again showing how close the top of this championship is. Jonathan Roulette, who we didn't see any of, to be honest, through that race. Sorry, Jonathan. Canadian finishes fourth, 12.6 seconds down. Harry Wills and James Pearce did not take the flag. And Austin, our Pro-Am category, if you please.
Yeah, finishing first, your Pro-Am category is going to be Yaris Garfias, just ahead of Daniel Tenorio with Jeremy Littleton in his Gulf Racing Porsche rounding out the podium. John Cooper finishes fourth, followed by Steven Martinez in fifth. Bruno Alcaraz comes home sixth. Dean Timms finishes seventh, and Andrew Rasmussen rounds out your 8-car field.
Thank you very much indeed. And of course, last but not least, is our AM category, won by Logan Vida in that race. Andrew Hewson, only 0.3 of a second behind him in second. But unfortunately, of course, we saw drivers being taken out on the final lap by our overall race winner. Errol Urixoy eventually completes the podium. Joining him a lap down, though, Joseph Smith, the man who was pushed off the road, Daniel Florea, Michael Kulaga, Travis Kepler, Jason Bridges, Casey Metzger, and Eric Kulaga, with Drew Newbyer not making it to the end either. But still, plenty of action around this very, very short circuit here. Like you say, we've got a few minutes now until we get to the feature race of the evening. Obviously, the longer of these two races. Certainly going to be an entertaining one indeed. What can we expect differently from that race, do you reckon, compared to this one?
Well, that race, I feel like you're going to have the pit stop in hand, so we're going to kind of see some fuel games being played by some drivers, whether you want to take your first pit stop early or leave it till the very end and kind of see how the entire race plays out. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of drivers taking tires. I would assume no drivers taking tires, to be quite honest with you. I feel like we're also going to see less of a sense of urgency from these guys, and you're going to see some of the fast guys that finished at the back end of each of these fields kind of just start up front and maybe be able to run away with this race. I feel like definitely in the Pro-Am and in AM categories, we're going to see some more of that.
Well, everybody, you heard it here first then from Austin. He's given us a very, very strong insight as to what's going on there. We're just going to take a quick break here, get into the second session of the evening. Do not go away. We will be back with you in a couple of minutes. Hello again, everybody. Chaz Draycott and Austin Belkey here on Absolute Sim Racing for another round or two of the Race Anywhere World Series Porsche Cup, the US split of these wonderful championships. And we're here at Donington Park, of course, for the second of two races this evening. We've just witnessed a wonderful 20-minute sprint race, and now we're back for the feature race as well. A much longer race this time, Austin. Certainly gives these drivers a lot to do over the course of a night, because really they've got to try and cram in two different styles of racing into one night. It's certainly a great challenge, isn't it? Apologies, I think we're having a little bit of a connection issue there. Austin had a slight connection problem before, so maybe just fixing that in the background. However, this wonderful circuit lends itself to some fantastic racing. And as you can see, we've only got a handful of cars out there at the moment, just getting their laps in this warm-up session. You can see quite murky conditions as things stand at the moment. If we look at the weather, as you can see on the right-hand side, it's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It is the correct date as well. So it is January the 5th. 2022. That's of course based on UK time though. Good old Blighty, because that's where Donington Park is. As off the road there goes Jonathan Ouellette in the very shiny green machine. But of course, with it being a winter setting here, Austin, the light is going to fade very quickly indeed for some of these drivers. I think we might actually get some sort of sunset conditions here throughout this final race. What do you reckon?
I think so, yeah. The current time is about 1400, so I feel like in just a few short minutes, maybe about 10 or 20, we'll start seeing the sun go down. Then these headlights are really going to come into play. And such a fast course where you go from left to right, usually over the top of crests and stuff. Headlights going to play a huge part of this game, and hopefully none of these guys have any extra lighting in their room. I always find it best to kind of make sure there's no other lighting apart from my TV screen whenever I do night races like this.
Yeah, indeed, I completely agree with you. I've had the nightmare before where I try and stream as many of my races as I can and try and light myself up as well, get good lighting in the room, but having the ring lights and everything on in the studio, lighting up the rig as bright as I can, trying to see a completely almost pitch black screen where some of the circuits on iRacing, of course, aren't made for night racing, they're not fully lit. It can be a very big pain in the backside. So to be honest, I totally get what you mean. I've also tried racing before with what we call high gamma on our screens, where we have the brightness turned up so the black or any blacks on the screen sort of like a grey, so you can see the finer details. You can basically see in the dark is what it enables you to do, but it's not always the best way to do it, and it doesn't always work. So night racing, even in the sim racing world, you've got to say, is just as much of a challenge, maybe not exactly the same ways, but in certain ways compared to the real world.
I feel like in some ways, sometimes it's even more of a challenge, because there's a lot of times where sometimes I doubt just how effective the headlights would or wouldn't be, especially in the sim world. Because a lot of times I've said to other people on here, like, I really feel like my headlights in real life are much more powerful. I can see things a lot further away, and then they kind of always tell me, like, well, yeah, but how fast do you go at night when you're in your car? Maybe 70 max, maybe 100. These guys are cresting at least a $120 or so it really kind of puts that into perspective.
Yeah, definitely. And at the end of the day, when you've got headlights in your rear view mirror from a racing car in the sim, you're not really squinting. You're not sort of doing that thing where you always get somebody in an SUV or something behind you when they're slightly higher than your car and they absolutely blind you with their lights in the mirror, but you squint like mad for stuff like that. But in the sim, it's just a few more white pixels, isn't it? It's not blinding light coming from your screen all of a sudden. So you do lose that sort of effect, which is a good thing. But at the same time, you don't get the peripheral vision. You don't get the sort of awareness around you like you would in the real world, where the lights would shine off the mirrors. Whoops, Joseph Smith has a bit of a spin. But again, it's just one of the wonderful things about sim racing, where we still get the great racing, but some of the negatives and some of the distractions from real world racing, they're gone and out the window because it can't be simulated.
Yeah, one thing too to kind of differentiate everything is just how good your PC might be too. You
Mm.
can really easily turn down the amount of light sources on all these maps. So usually every single car in a 60-car race would have headlights, but in your sim, because your PC is only so strong, you might only have 5 cars doing headlights. But enough rambling. We'll get to your starting order.
We will indeed. Thank you very much. Jonathan Roulette will start on the front row of the grid alongside Michael Yanni. Elvis Rankin and Dino Filippa will make up row 2. James Pearce and Harry Wills did not finish the first race and thus will start at the back of their class. Andrew Rasmussen heads the Pro-Am field ahead of Dean Timms, with Bruno Alcaraz and Stephen Martinez on row 2. Behind them is John Cooper and Jeremy Littleton, with Daniel Tenorio and Jos Garfias rounding out the Pro-Ams. Eric Kulaga is top of the Am class with Casey Metzger alongside him. Then it's Jason Bridges and Travis Kepler. The other Kulaga, Michael, starts 5th ahead of Daniel Florea in 6th place. Joseph Smith is 7th ahead of Elril Uriksoy. Andrew Hewson and Logan Vida rounds out the 10 Am drivers, just ahead of Drew Neubauer, who in the Team Pramac car unfortunately did not finish the first race. So, not long till green, but it's green at the front of the grid here. Austin, Jonathan Roulette, how do you think he can hold on ahead of these guys behind him?
I mean, you can be a very, very good driver just as Jonathan is, but I feel like you're going to be pretty hard-pressed to fend off the 3 extremely fast drivers behind you. I know James Pearce would likely like another shot at this race win, especially given how the race ended for him last race. Harry Wills is having a very strong day out there until he made just a little bit of a mistake, forced him to have to park his car with the amount of damage he had endured on that thing. So I feel like Jonathan should be able to at least lead a lap or 2, but after that, I mean, you'd have to have a 7K rating just to compete with the 3 other drivers running out the top 4. So we'll see what he's able to do.
You can just see there the gap as well that these guys leave to the cars behind. Of course, the 3 classes starting with a big gap between them, usually about 10 to 15 seconds. But the second race of the night is about to get underway with Jonathan at the front of it. The lights come on and they go off again very quickly. Jonathan is away like an absolute lightning bolt, a bright green lightning bolt down towards turn 1. These guys are going to keep it nice and tidy as they go into and hopefully out of Redgate without trouble. A little bit of contact and around goes James Pearce. He's had a spin. Hopefully he can recover that quickly because here come the Pro-Ams, Austin.
Yeah, Pro-Am's Andrew Rasmussen out to a huge lead, uncontested into turns 1 and 2. Followed right behind him are Dean Timms and John Cooper. John was very fast in the last race. 2 Coopers there, especially 2 teammates, excuse me, instead of just 2 Coopers. Only 1 Cooper. They go ahead and foul through the first couple turns here. And the Am category just now getting started. You can see Eric Kulaga up to a pretty decent lead. A huge jump on the start from him. Not too big, though, because Casey Metzger is hot on his tail.
He is indeed, and Travis Kepler gets past Jason Bridges for 3rd position. Nicely done from him. We've got 4 cars battling very, very closely further down, although Eric Kulaga out of the lead has gone off onto the grass, and Casey Metzger is through and leads the Am class at the very, very top of the pile, though. Oulette's still holding on, but it's another car with green flashes on it. Michael Yanni down the inside.
Oh, more contact, actually. Eric Kulaga, and I don't know who else that is. Jason Bridges, yeah, contact between those 2 drivers. Side-by-side contact. Looks like Harold might have just, washed up the track just a little bit. No, that's Jason goes in a little bit too hot and just collects the very unfortunate Kulaga there.
It's that tricky braking zone that we saw earlier, isn't it? Causing more problems for these guys. Daniel Tenorio is also off the road at the moment, but we need to keep our eye on this, see what happens at the very top of the pile, because right now, the Canadian Jonathan Roulette trying to hold on. Around the outside go Elvis Rankin and Dino Filippa. Dino's got only the room that he needs there. Around the outside of Coppice, that's not an easy place to overtake. Jonathan says, not on your life, sunshine, get out there. You are not having this from me easily. I'm in the same class as you. I have every right to fight you, and he is doing exactly that right now. Harry Wills is going to be watching this from behind, just squinting and just thinking, oh, please no. And Jonathan holds on. Now, this is helping the Apex guys right now, because Dino is not going to be able to stay with them if this carries on.
No, very much. You can see Jonathan doing a great job. Fantastic holding off these 3 faster drivers than him. You can see Dino just finally going to chuck it up the inside. Almost makes it work there. Yeah, he's going to clear Jonathan there out of turn 1 into turn 2. Still actually on his inside goes James Pearce. Or no, Harry Wills, excuse me. He's going to go ahead and make the position done too. You can see just how advantageous it is to be on the inside in those first couple right-handers.
Yeah, big send down the inside from Harry Wills there. Just going to take a quick look back at what happened to Daniel Tenorio. He's got Jos Garfias down the inside, runs a little bit wide and just pushes him off at turn 1. Travis Kepler then had a problem as well. He's going to go off at turn 1 too. Just a little bit late on the brakes. And then Daniel Florea, I feel, probably did the same thing. No, actually, down at the old hairpin. Again, it's that lockup that we saw before, isn't it?
Yeah, just like that. Super easy to do that here, especially if you don't have your brake bias perfectly adjusted. And it's kind of one of those things you got to change constantly throughout the race to make sure as the tires wear from the front to the rear end of the car, you kind of just keep dialing that brake bias in ever so slightly.
This is the middle of the Pro-Am category. Alcaraz currently in 5th position, chasing Garfias and Timms, but it's Andrew Rasmussen leading this class at the moment in the classic Valvoline livery. Looks absolutely wonderful. He is in the number 11 machine. He had a lot of trouble in the first race, but he's doing very well here. Errol Urixoy, by the way, is currently... James Pearce has just gone into the pits very quickly. We'll look at that in a second, but I was going to raise the point that Errol Urixoy has actually gained 7 places from where he started, and he's only done 3 laps. That's a really good start to the race.
Well, yeah, you have to remember, too, Errol's one of the faster guys, finished very high up the order. Actually was just able to barely, I believe, get the podium there when Joe Smith was kind of hit by Dino Filippa as they're kind of rounding out the last couple corners of their final lap. So just barely was able to sneak back onto the podium. Had to start way in the back, of course, for this race then. And we saw 2 of those drivers started midfield in at least the AM category there. Kind of just get, taken out by one another. So he's just able to get that spot. And, of course, one of the fastest guys, to say it every week, one of the best passers in the league here, so he certainly knows how to make passes on this track too.
Yeah, he's done a fantastic job of it throughout the season. James Pearce, like I say, went to the pits and he's just decided to pull over to one side. Not quite sure what the problem was before that. I didn't see him go off the road, but I think his evening is very much done, unfortunately. Now there's been a change at the top of the Pro-Ams. This is John Cooper, who has just overtaken Andrew Rasmussen for the class lead. Gained 5 places from where he started as John Cooper. And Harry Wills has now just gone off the road as well. I'm afraid they're all dropping off here. Harry's just run wide at McLean's, but we need to stay with this. These Pro-Ams have been very entertaining, haven't they, this season?
They certainly have, yeah. It's kind of where, all the drivers that don't quite fit in the pro category and don't quite fit in the AM category can kind of come together. And we've seen a lot of, great battles between these guys. And certainly it always seems like they have their best battles when the battles in the other 2 classes are not very egregious or, should I say, often. So every time there is no battles in the pro or AM category, you can see a lot of battles in the pro AM category right now. As you see Dino Filippa trying to sand down the inside of Elvis Rankin. Yeah,
indeed. I think actually Dino got past him and then Elvis got a cutback on him and got back in front. And now Dino's managed to get the job done this time round. We're going to stay with the chopper cam for a moment. Just watch these guys flow their way around this circuit. You can see how high speed Donington Park is. Some of the TV cameras don't really do it justice, but when you see just how much these cars float one way then the other in this very quick, twisty circuit, you can see just how much of the road they're having to use as well. It's all about carrying momentum. That's kind of why it really separates the men from the boys in this sort of racing at Donington Park, especially in a car like this. I mean, in a downforce car like, any sort of prototypes or GT cars, Donington's incredible. But at the end of the day, in a Porsche Cup car, it's a bit of a terrifying prospect, but these guys do all right. Whoa, big slide there by Filippa.
Yeah, it certainly is. You really don't get a sense, like you mentioned, just how fast and flowing this track is from all these TV angles, because it's always looking at the car and then it dives into a corner. You kind of get a different camera angle. But when we can view them like that with that chopper cam just barely behind the cars, you really get a true sense of just how flowing this track is and how enjoyable it is to race on. It's a lot of fun to just come out, do hot laps on. Super fun to be in a race. Very aggravating, though, to race on this track because it's just impossible to find a place to pass. And, these guys cut out the two hairpins usually that we'll see when you go down the backstretch. Instead of making the chicane to the right like these guys are on the front stretch, there's a chicane that can also go to the left where there's a hairpin to the right, then back to the left, that sets you up for the same front straightaway that we're using right now. And you can get a lot of passes done in those two hairpins, and of course promotes passing in that regard. So if you kind of lose both those opportunities, you aren't left with very many.
No, that's very true indeed. It's not a driver's favourite part of the circuit is the Grand Prix loop, let's put it that way. It was actually added for a Formula 3000 race a long time ago, I believe, and no one's really liked it since. But I'm a very lucky boy, actually. I've been round Donington Park on 2 separate track days, once in a BMW M2 competition, which my friend owns, which was up to at least 550 horsepower, which was a hell of a lot of fun in greasy conditions, so we were sideways just about everywhere. But then the second time that I've been out was actually in a Porsche Cayman GT4 car, which was ridiculous because we were going down the Craner curves. The car was going left, but we were turning right, and it was pretty scary because obviously those things are left-hand drive. I was looking out of the window to the right at the old hairpin, which was scary to say the least, but it was Charles Clark of Into Racing taking me around there, so it was their fully fledged racing driver, and yeah, he wasn't holding back, I can tell you that for free.
No, certainly not at that point. I'm almost not sure if he wants to put in a great lap for you, mostly just a scary lap so you kind of get an idea just how on the ragged edge you are and kind of just knock your socks off there.
Oh, indeed. It was all over the show. There was a dry line and he didn't want to stick to it, so it was certainly an entertaining one. It was great fun, but like you say, hell of a circuit. I mean, when you stamp on the brakes here, I can still feel the motion sickness now when I watch drivers go onto the brakes on board like we have here with Harry Wills. He's just chasing down Jonathan Roulette in front of him, the man who started this race on pole. Let's not forget Harry Wills did not finish the first race earlier on, so he's going to be hoping right now he can at least get some points out of this one. John Cooper has almost a 1 second lead in the Pro-Am class because he's got Rasmussen under pressure from Garfias and Timms. Dean Timms, another one looking to maybe get one over on Jos in this race after their little skirmish in the first attempt.
Yeah, I kind of feel like you're right there, Chaz. I've been watching this battle, especially for third place the last couple laps, and it really seems like Dean's a lot better on the brakes, especially into that last chicane. He gains a lot of time into that area, and Jos doesn't usually pull very far away on the rest of the track. You kind of just see an example of that right now. The gap really closes every time they have to stomp on the stop pedal, and it kind of gets a little bit bigger every time they get on the loud one. But, Dean certainly kind of catching back up further and further, and I feel like Jos really trying to go back-to-back right now.
Yeah, he is certainly pushing hard at the moment. The Mexican driver, Jos Garfias, gets a fantastic run through the chicane. That's where he was strong earlier.
Oh, man, yeah, you see Rasmussen get a handful of opposite lock coming out of the chicane. That's just going to open the door for Jos. I feel like he's going to have this uncontested, almost going to clear Andrew heading down into turn 1, and he's just going to have to give that spot up. You can see Dean just trying to sneak his nose in there on the inside, not quite able to get it done.
No, but now Rasmussen's got a good run. Oh, cuts the inside of the Craner curves. You don't want to do that, Sunshine. Now he's got to be careful, make sure he gives Dean the room. Is Dean going to try to look down the inside? No, into the old hairpin. That's not going to help either of them. That's just going to compromise their run. But Garfias now has 1.2 seconds ahead of him to John Cooper. I'm sure we're going to see that gap go down very quickly. Casey Metzger, though, 4.1 second lead at the moment in the AM class. He's having a whale of a time, isn't he?
Yeah, again, this is just one example of a driver that has really, really rotten luck in the first race. Starts extremely far down the order, and of course, kind of just comes back to take the better of some cars. I mean, he only gridded up 16th, so he kind of started on the podium, started third in his class, gained 2 spots to be in the lead now, and he's just one driver that didn't appear to have a whole lot of speed based on the finishing order. But if you look at his lap times and practice, and these guys don't qualify like we mentioned earlier there, Chaz. Inverted starting in this order how they finished in the last one. So if you have a bad race but you have a lot of pace, you're going to start up in the front. You kind of almost just run away with the lead, as we see Casey doing.
Michael Yanni's just nipped off the road for a second. He still leads the race by nearly 2 seconds, but he's just had a bit of a moment there. Dino Filippa able to close in by a couple of tenths. Elvis Rankin is then a further, I should say, second behind him. Jonathan Roulette still holding off Harry Wills at this moment in time, actually. Harry just behind him, maybe just following along for now just to try and make sure he can match his pace. He maybe knows that they're not quite able to match the pace of the guys right out front, so they know that this battle is just between these two for now. It's probably a realistic approach, because at the end of the day, it's all about scoring the points, isn't it?
Yeah, that's certainly right, Chaz. And I almost kind of, kind of questioning whether or not Harry's maybe trying to save a little fuel. We, of course, saw him kind of just barely get by Jonathan, taking advantage of when Dino did earlier in this race, kind of just shot it up the inside of him, took advantage there. But Jonathan got back past him when Harry made a mistake, so Harry might just kind of be riding around, kind of maybe believing that they're pretty equal on pace, and certainly doing a very good job at it. So you can see these two kind of drivers, kind of going toe to toe right now, lock and step for the last couple laps or so. And I feel like both these drivers are kind of just content with where they are.
Yeah, that's it. Just managing the pace together. Harry knows that if he wants to make an attempt at overtaking Jonathan, he can, but he's not really fighting it too hard at the moment because at the end of the day, all that'll do is compromise the pair of them. He's just going to stick with him and see what he's got in his locker. Bruno Alcaraz is not too far ahead of Daniel Tenorio, and Daniel Tenorio is not too far ahead of Steven Martinez. Daniel got past him just a lap or so ago as they make their way back up the hill. Another close battle is Travis Kepler ahead of Andrew Hewson and Eric Kulaga. These guys, another trio here. We tend to have quite a lot of trios in this championship when these guys fight together, don't we?
Yeah, usually 9 times out of 10, it's not just one driver versus another. They kind of go around in packs of 3, catching each other, and sometimes it's 2 drivers running, a certain guy down, and as soon as they catch that guy, then the battle gets on because, one guy says, I know he's been catching me for a while, so I got to make this move. Oh, a little bit of contact there between those 2 cars. Free spots for the rest of the drivers. Oh, another more contact behind them. Andrew Hewson getting clipped by another car. There's the leaders, overall leaders coming through, so that's one thing you got to watch out too.
Yeah, Andrew just chucked it up the inside of Travis. He did it with plenty of warning.
I don't quite know if it was a chuck up the inside. I feel like he was very well warranted. I'll have to get another replay of that angle for sure, maybe from behind one of the drivers on a chase cam or something, or maybe a helicopter cam. But I feel like he was well within his right to be on the inside there. That's what I was saying. Travis just chopping him off.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that Andrew gave him plenty of warning that he was coming up the inside. He moved over very early on, and unfortunately, I think maybe Travis was just expecting him to back out of that one and not commit to the move. But
yeah, either back out or maybe just not. Maybe just figured there's a little bit more runoff room for Andrew to take advantage of, and unfortunately there just wasn't. So they made contact. But I don't view that as too egregious a move by either driver. It's just these cars are already on edge. The slightest touch is going to send them over that edge and on the outer part of the circuit right now. As we continue to see this battle between Jonathan Ouellette and Harry Wills heat up. Harry becoming a little bit complacent. He says, "I'd like to come through if you wouldn't mind," and Jonathan says, "You can have it, but you're going to have to fight me for it."
Yeah, Jonathan just ran a little bit wide out of Coppice there. Didn't quite have the run that he wanted. Looks back down the inside, tries to regain that place, but no, he's put himself offline for the chicane now, and Harry is going to gain some good ground. Just want to have a look again at Andrew Hewson because he got clipped by another car when he went around. So he looks down the inside. So he moves out now. Plenty of time, but he's really unfortunate in that one there because his car goes sideways and then he gets smacked into there. I'm pretty sure, was that Michael Kulaga? It was, and Kulaga's car takes a big old hit and there's a lot of damage there, and he's actually into the pits now.
Yeah, quite a lot of damage. This kind of seems like it could be a scheduled stop for him. It's not too bad of an idea to kind of come into the pits right now, see if you do have any damage, get that body damage repaired, kind of take on the rest of the fuel you'll need for the end of the race. These cars, of course, do not have fast repairs. We see Steven Martinez off right now in the chicanes.
Yeah, the Vulture car's not having a good time right now. Kulaga and Martinez both having a moment and being off the road. That means actually Casey Metzger has overtaken Martinez and Rasmussen for position overall right now. Metzger currently running 12th place and leading his class by some 4.2 seconds. So that's quite the comfortable buffer in these smaller classes that they have here in this championship. But the thing is, I enjoy having a class that isn't 30 odd cars because it's more manageable to watch. This isn't so manageable to watch though. John Cooper and Yoskar Fias, these two going at it for the Pro-Am lead.
Yeah, certainly a lot more manageable when you have smaller classes like this, and it really is just a joy to watch these guys kind of go at it with one another. And a smaller field like this, all the drivers kind of get more comfortable with racing around one another because there's only 10 different styles to have to adapt to and learn to race around instead of 30. You can see Yas really closed up the lead here to Cooper, and we saw these two drivers fighting for the lead in the last race too. Yas, of course, obviously able to get the better of John in that one. I don't know if maybe he was being helped by his damage in that race, and this time he isn't. Maybe he needs to kind of put his car in the wall to gain another tenth or two of a second. But since we started watching these guys, they're already down by another tenth of a second.
Yeah, indeed. Certainly, the fight isn't always the way to maintain your pace, but still, when have we seen Oscar Fias back out of a fight? This guy loves to have a go. He loves to make sure that he takes every opportunity to make a move. Not too far up the road from this, by the way. Jonathan Roulette and Harry Wills are still having their fight. Jonathan put him under pressure just a moment ago. Harry makes a bit of a mistake out of the first corner at Redgate. Just behind them on the road, trying to figure out which of our AMs that is. I think that's Drew Newby. It is. We've got an AM off, which is Daniel Florea, and he is off. McLean just keeps out of the
that
wall.
was close.
It's always a very, very satisfying moment. Well, not the most satisfying moment, but one of them when you keep it out the wall like that, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. You're kind of proud of yourself for getting the car at least woed up, and you kind of remember like, oh yeah, I did kind of blow that corner go off in the sand trip and barely was able to save the car, but you'll take it. I'll take a car that didn't hit the wall, just went off track, than a car that went off track and of course was completely told. Right now you see Jonathan Ouellette kind of trying to sneak up the inside of Harry Wills here. Harry's going to let him have the position. Maybe we'll see if he does the cutback coming out of the chicanes here. Not quite able to do it.
Yeah, there's nothing really that sneaky about a bright green metallic car, but to be honest, Jonathan somehow made it sneaky, didn't he? As he went down the inside, Harry takes him back, lovely stuff. Back up towards McLean. Sorry, not McLean.
Oh, watch this, the crossover too. You got to hold the inside advantage right now. These guys might go side by side. They certainly are. Finally back out to single file line before they go down the rest of the hill. These guys are having an absolute wow of the time, putting on a great show. Yeah, brilliant stuff there from Jonathan Roulette in the big green machine, trying to get away as he may from Harry Wills, but like you say there, Austin, the two of them having a fantastic time, battling very, very closely, just showing you how close they are together here. Harry Wills all over the back of him. We've had a car off the road, but right now that is just academic because these two are giving us all of the entertainment we need. Nearly 20 minutes into the race, which to any eagle-eyed viewers would have been, of course, the length of the first race of the night, but we're going to more than double that in this feature race. We're going to chuck a pit stop in there as well. Fuel is limited to 50% in these cars, so they will not make it for 45 minutes. It forces a pit stop out of them and forces some pit stop strategy, which at the end of the day, Austin, is more than what we need to spice up the racing even more, isn't it? Yeah, for sure. And 9 times out of 10, these guys usually have to start right around the 35-minute mark. That's usually when they run out of fuel. It obviously is track dependent. Sometimes it also depends how much fuel these guys are saving on any given day, especially with the track conditions. You have a cooler track where maybe there isn't much sun. You can, of course, apply more throttle, go faster on the laps. You complete more laps. You're using more gas when you go around here, so kind of might lead these guys to a bit of an earlier pit stop, but it should be very, very interesting to see how this goes on. Right now, you know, if I'm Cooper or if I'm Philippa or Cooper, kind of going to want to pit a little bit earlier, see if you can kind of offset yourself from the other driver, maybe get yourself a couple laps of clean air. So very interested to see how these guys choose their pitting strategy.
Yeah, indeed. I always love seeing how a longer race develops per driver. You see some of them really adapt and completely change what you thought they were going to do, but then other drivers just, no matter what gets thrown at them, they don't change their mind. They just say, nope, I'm going to stick to the plan, stick to exactly what I wanted to do from the get-go, and you see them see the plan through. Sometimes it doesn't always work as well as they wanted because something else in the race has affected it, but most of the time you see drivers that are very content with sticking to a plan and getting some points and a strong result out of it at the end. So Harry Wills still less than 13 seconds off the race lead overall, putting in some fine lap times at the moment just behind Jonathan Roulette. But the actual battle for the lead, to be fair, Austin, still less than a second right now as Michael Yanni leads from Dino Filippa.
Yeah, it's closed up by a whole second since we went away from these guys, and that's just sort of what happened once they started catching traffic. I feel like Michael was just slowed down by an entire second having to get past these cars for the first time, and Dino just kind of able to catch him in a little bit better of an area. I don't feel like Dino has a pace advantage over Michael. I feel like just just how they've been picking up these lap cars and putting them down. You can see Elvis Rankin just behind the two of those cars there, trying to make his way through the lap traffic as well, and kind of just you want to be careful, but there is obviously a sense of urgency when you go through these right now. I want to mention one thing too. AM category, Casey Metzger right now 6 seconds ahead of Errol Urich. So we kind of see that every now and again. You see an AM driver or a pro AM driver just kind of outperform the rest of their class, and usually every other time they go out on the track, they're kind of just right around maybe mid-pack or at least leading in their own category. And you can see, I mean, Casey has passed quite a few drivers in categories above him just simply on raw pace alone. He's passed a couple different Pro-Am drivers, of course, obviously being scored in front of more than that, including a pro driver when they, of course, pull off the racetrack. But he's really outperforming today.
Yeah, he's doing a wonderful, wonderful job. Here's Casey Metzger. That is Bruno Alcaraz just behind him, but he is in the Pro-Am category, so he's not racing him technically. Errol Urich, so he's still 6.2 seconds back, so not too much to worry about for Casey right now. To be honest, if he doesn't quite have the pace of Bruno behind him, you may as well just let him go. Try not to lose any time fighting him. It may be overall position, but at the end of the day, the class points are what matter. These drivers scored in their individual classes rather than on overall position. A little bit further down the order, we've got Travis Kepler catching up with and overtaking Andrew Hewson by the look of it. And there you go. Andrew Hewson deciding to pull over out of the way there. A lot of damage, of course, from that earlier incident, though, isn't there? This is still going on, by the way. Look at these pair.
Yeah, they're still going at each other, really cutthroat competition here. You can see both these drivers not giving the other one too much room, but just kind of having a good time going back and forth, taking positions. And this is when you can really have fun, kind of understand the craft and your car control right here. You know, these close door-to-door battles, kind of making sure you don't punt another guy off the course. And this is just some of that good old classic racing fun between these two drivers, especially, you know, you're not really fighting for a whole lot, but of course, you know, you cleared the time on your calendar to come out here and do a race, and you're certainly going to finish it the way you want to with a running car. And these drivers both obviously have a very similar mentality to one another.
Yeah, they certainly do. And, you know, it's like the touring car racing mentality, but without the contact. These guys are absolutely loving it at the moment. Jonathan has spent most of the race in front of Harry, but now he gets to look at the back of the Twisted Racing machine. Very pretty car as well, very dramatic livery on that machine. We've got a lot of red and black and red and silver, even red and white cars in our field, but that doesn't mean that any of them are less pretty. Andrew Rasmussen's just had a problem here though, Austin. I wonder if you can just take us through this one.
Oh yeah, it looks like so his left rear tire, just barely got off into the slippery stuff there, and of course you're not going to get any grip for the rest of the car, so you're just kind of going to slide the back end around. Very, very good car control there for him to just barely catch the car before he completely looped it and just able to barely get back on track and continue to put the power down. So a little bit of a light slip up. Going to be very lucky to save that one. I've certainly had it happen a lot worse and seen a lot worse happen from the driver's seat myself, and we're still looking at this battle here. I do want to focus on the battle for the overall lead. Dino Filippa's caught Michael Janney by a good couple tenths of a second. Last time we looked at these drivers, it was about 9/10 of a second down from 1.8, and right then when we looked at Andrew going off the course there, barely hold on to his car, it was about 3/10 of a second. Right now back to about to a half a second, and Michael's having a pretty hard time pulling away from Dino from the looks of it.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, some of the traffic that he's getting, it's very intermittent traffic. You know, he's just getting to the odd car here and there. It's not one big group all at once. He's getting them thrown at him at different points of the circuit each time. And then Dino is able to just capitalise. He's able to think, right, he's been held up there, so I don't need to rush overtaking this guy. I can just take a second, make sure I don't lose any more time, and then go from there. Wondering if we can just quickly have a look at the track map potentially and see whether we can see roughly how everybody's spread out, but I do not see the settings for that on here at the moment. We all have something called project files in our timing software where we all have our own things that we can do and can't do. And it seems like we don't have that enabled here, so apologies everyone, but either way, it seems like everyone's quite spread out. As that is Logan Vida going Logan wider.
I see what you did there, man. Props to you on that one. It took me a good second or two to kind of go like, oh, I wonder where he's going with that. But classic stuff there. Yeah, Logan just went a little bit wide through that turn. We saw much easier, better to do that, in fact, than it is to kind of just spin the car the rest of the way around and around, nose the thing into the wall, kind of end your day. So very fortunate on his behalf. He was just able to kind of go through that gravel trap. Of course, he might have gotten a slowdown there. Might just be letting these guys go. I feel like he is racing them for position, so I feel like there's no reason to let him by unless he did get a corner cutting penalty.
It's Harry Wills and Jonathan Ouellette that he's letting through. Pretty VIP right now on our stream because they're getting most of the airtime, but they are having the best battle that we've seen this evening. Jonathan Howe having to just compromise his line slightly there as he goes down the inside of the number 66 machine of Eric Kulaga. Logan Vida now tucked up right behind him for third position in their class. He, of
Excuse
course,
me, yeah, that's right. I feel like I think Logan just let the Kulaga brother by, and then he, of course, got out of the way to let the two pro drivers by. You can kind of see just the pace deficit between even the pro drivers and the AM category drivers. Not a whole lot of a difference.
Oh, and Logan actually had to get on the brakes there to not go into the back of Eric just for a second, so he's certainly confident on corner exit. It looked like he got on the power a lot earlier. He's trying to tuck it in down the inside a little bit more here, just to edge his way into the mirrors of Eric Kulaga, just to get into the peripheral vision, just to fill those mirrors a little bit more. He wants to make sure that Eric doesn't have any sort of advantage over him. He's thinking, right, it's only because I made that slight mistake that you have got ahead, and I want to get that position back. And he certainly makes his intentions clear, looks down the inside nice and early on, sends the car through there. He's not going to run Eric out of road, but he gets in front and gets rid of the overlap. Now, Michael Yanni only 3/10 of a second ahead of Dino Filippa right now, and I think this lead battle is potentially going to Filippa around and be the other way up in a minute, because Dino is on a charge.
I feel like you're right, too. I'm not quite sure if Michael might have used up his tires earlier on. I will say, though, for every time he gains a couple cents on the track, a couple tenths of a second on the track, and catches Michael, he usually makes his, about a tenth of a second or two of a mistake every couple laps. So everything he gains, he kind of gives back up. You do see him, though, every couple laps, kind of making more gains than he's losing. Wouldn't be too surprised, though, if he kind of just pulled on into the pits when he was sure he could make it on fuel, kind of offset him so he has the clean air if he does believe he truly is faster on the course of a lap. So I feel like he should come into the pits in the next couple laps or so, as we see one driver, I think Jonathan Ouellette, spun around coming out of the chicane onto the front stretch just barely before the pit road entry. I feel like he kind of just might have gotten on the power a little bit too much.
Let's have a look, shall we? It's easy to do, especially if you catch the sausage curb as well. Oh, you could just see the moment that the car went there.
Yep.
Just noses it into the wall. Gentle little kiss into the barrier, and he's going to 180 that thing around and then go straight in the pits. Nice stuff. Nice recovery at least, but it's a shame to see the mistake there from Jonathan Ouellette.
Yeah, Dan Tenorio going to get a little bit swap-ended as we go into the, yep, picking him up just in time there. Looks like he just got his braking marker a bit off. Maybe had the brake bias not too selected to his liking, kind of just locked him up into the corner. And yeah, oh man, it was very, very close to rear-ending the car just ahead of him. And of course, no harm, no foul. Might want to go get some new tires, but of course, not too worried about flat spotting him. As we see John D. Cooper just now coming out of the pits, and Dino Filippa's gone off.
Dino goes wide at turn one after all of that chasing and all of that persistence chasing Michael Yanni. He loses second place to Elvis Rankin. Elvis goes through, takes the advantage. And wow, oh wow, it's not often we see mistakes from Dino Filippa. Let's have a look. Oh, he's just got it all kinds of deep down the inside. Maybe a bit smoother on the brakes, tries not to snatch any of them. And around he goes. I'm not sure the traffic had anything to do with that there. Maybe just because he was slightly offline, he just didn't quite adjust how he wanted to.
Yeah, if anything, I think he was kind of pressured to take a little bit more of a defensive entry, kind of just cut off is the way he arced into the corner there for the one driver coming off pit road. It is a very odd pit road exit here. You kind of just shoved onto the track, and you see a lot of drivers kind of wanting to cut a little bit over in the pit road exit area. And if you see a driver coming out, they can't slow down, they can't go any faster, so you kind of got to give them a little bit more room. And I feel like that forced just to lock up his brakes just a little bit more, but we are going to see the top three drivers of the race come on into the pit set to the about 32-minute mark. You can kind of see them 1, 2, 3 all in their pit stalls there.
Yeah, indeed. Now we're going to see how quickly they leave as well, because the pit stops have been about 10, 11 seconds. These guys, well, Michael Yanni actually 10.2 seconds. Elvis and Dino within 9 seconds. So very even there in terms of the pit stops. Only about 8 tenths of a second actually difference between the three of them. Michael Yanni still leads the race as he comes out. And it's Apex 1 and 2 at the moment. Apex Racing Academy from Apex Racing Team. Oris Racing Dino Felipe is third. So, looking at our class leaders, Oscar Fias actually our class leader, slightly askew in his in his pit box for a second there, but nothing wrong with that clearly. As he then
Be very, very interested to watch the left-hand part of our screen right now, Chas, because John Cooper should be coming by any second now to come away and take the lead. Yep, there he is. So it looks like Yasa able to come away with the position there. Yasa waiting to pit a little bit later than John did. Yet we just saw John come out of the pits just about a lap or two ago.
Yeah, indeed, John not able to get that class lead, but still only 1.5 seconds back off Oscar Fias, so he could definitely get it done. Casey Metzger now in the pits. He had a fantastic lead earlier on. Drew Newbuyer, who finished bottom of the class actually in the previous race, just making his way in as well. Errol Uriksoy is going to be the next car through, and I think he's actually going to overtake Casey here, because Casey, unlike most others, has taken tyres. The car up in the air. I was quite surprised to see it go up in the air. Everyone else has had a sort of 10-second, even sub-10 second pit stop. Casey's been there for 35 seconds.
Yeah, you really do add a lot of time every time you want to try to take tires at one of these stops. It's almost about 30 or 40 seconds alone just to take tires. Sometimes it's as little as about 25. I feel like this might just be one scenario where he kind of went into the pits, forgot to uncheck his tires, because we've never seen any drivers take tires in this league before, so I have to imagine this is kind of a slip up on his part. Yeah, just kind of going to pull into the pits here, and immediately car goes up on the jack stands. Nothing he can really do about it. Yeah.
I'm wondering whether he might have sped into the pits as well, because, to be honest, he's been in there even longer than just your everyday
It could also
tire
just
change.
be he's kind of just giving up hope right now. If you're losing that much time, he's kind of just forfeited all those points. He might be disappointed. No, he is finally going now after taking tires, so I don't know. Yeah, it looks kind of angry leaving the pits there. Be very interested to hear if that was taking tires, speeding into the pits, and maybe just figured he could take tires.
Well, he was in the box for 1 minute and 20 seconds, and usually in these cars, I believe it's about 40 seconds to take tyres, which, if you add another 40 seconds, which is usually the sort of average pit lane speeding penalty, then that's 1 minute and 20, so I'm pretty sure that he's at least gone in a little bit too hot. It's easy to do here at Donington Park, because before you know it, you're in the pit lane and you've hit the green cone markers, or I think they're at least the yellow cones on iRacing, that signify the entrance to the pit lane and, of course, the start of the pit lane speed limit zone. So I think he might have just overdone it on the way in, and to rub salt into the wound, he's not, as we say it in the industry, unchecked his tyres.
No, definitely not. Took his tires there. Interesting battle for the lead here. We've seen it kind of close up by that whole second after Michael didn't take quite as much fuel as his teammate Elvis behind him. Dino Filippa, though, about 2 more seconds back behind these guys, and of course pretty much uncontested, these three, in terms of their podium positions, at least by being challenged if knocked off the podium, unless they do make quite a sizable mistake. But Harry Wills, John Owlett still within 1 second of each other.
Yeah, indeed, actually. Jonathan either has really caught up, although, to be fair, Harry has actually been in his pit box for 4.7 seconds longer than Jonathan, so that's probably made the difference back from the spin that we saw earlier, actually, by Jonathan, hasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly has. I'm interested to see that spin only cost him about 4 seconds, but I can't imagine it would have cost him much more than that, because he did kind of spin the car out and just decide to go back down pit road. So I feel like he kind of gained some time that he would have instead lost otherwise from that move. So very good thinking on his part.
Yeah, indeed. Nice, quick thinking indeed. Well, we watch these guys once again then, so we get the treat of these guys still being very, very close together with one another, which is always nice to see. And hopefully it continues that way, because, I mean, the battle that they had earlier was just absolutely awesome fun to watch. Oh, and excuse me, my PC has just decided that something's connected to it USB-wise when I've not touched it. That's scary. Anyway, Harry Wills just had a scary moment himself actually coming out the chicane there, didn't he? The back end really did not want to play ball.
No, it did not. You kind of see him fight with that thing to try and put the power down, just barely in front of Jonathan right now. Currently, the gaps to your lead pro category 9/10, pro am category still about 2.5 seconds, and in the am category, it's going to be Errol Urixoy 13 seconds up the track over one of the Kulaga brothers. I believe that is going to be Eric Kulaga and his number 63 Porsche.
It is indeed. In just going up the hill now towards McLean's, but 13 seconds. Errol Urixoy. I'm absolutely devastated for Casey Metzger as well, based on that pit stop. But Errol, as you were saying before, to be fair, one of the quickest guys in the series. Really, really impressive in this AM category and continues to be so. It just seems very, very consistent, very, very tidy, doesn't he?
Yeah, every time. Usually he's one of the drivers that doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes anytime you see him out on track, always up in the at least the top half of the finishing order. That's why he does so well in the points all the time in his Twisted Racing Right Porsche. Just a fantastic drive once again for him today. Obviously not quite as stout as Casey Metzger had. Gutted, just like you said, for Casey. It was pretty much his race to lose at that point. Had a huge lead over the rest of the competition, but just wasn't meant to be today.
No, it certainly wasn't. This battle going on again down the Craner curve, side by side. Jonathan Ouellette goes through, gets past Harry Wills. Harry tries the cutback, takes a lot of the inside curb there at the old hairpin. You can't get away with too much of that without getting a slow down penalty from the elusive, invisible iRacing stewards. Don't tell Nim that. But Ouellette still doing a great job at keeping this battle alive. Considering he had that spin earlier, he'll be relishing the fact that he gets to continue this. Harry has dropped away a little bit here. I think he might be lifting off. Maybe he did get a slowdown that he has to serve because he's dropped a number of tenths. Someone else who's dropped a number of tenths is Michael Yanni, who has got Elvis Rankin now closing in once again. It's just under a second right now, but for a moment there, it actually went down to 7 tenths.
Yeah, that's right. All it takes is a really, really small mistake, especially on a track like this where, like you said, kind of separates the men from the boys when you have to use all the runoff in order to maximize the performance you get out of the car. And if you just make even a millimeter of a mistake, you're going to lose about a tenth or two. Luckily, though, for Michael, he was kind of able to pull that lead back out and continues to gap his teammate Elvis Rankin just behind him.
Yeah, Elvis just had a long old slide on the way out of Coppice there. It didn't look too obvious, but he just had a little bit of opposite lock on, just floating the car over the crest of the hill there. To be honest, I don't think in the real world I'd actually like to drive at Alton Park, because I'm a massive aviation nerd, and East Midlands Airport's right next to it, so you get flights in and out all day. So I'd just be staring at the pretty planes in the sky the whole time. iRacing have actually animated aircraft in there as well, which is quite interesting indeed. It is one aircraft, it's a Ryanair 737, but I can tell you that much because I'm a massive nerd. But Garfias, he is very much leading this pack at the moment in the Pro-Am category. 3.8 seconds to Cooper now. It's been a solid night from Jos, hasn't it? He had that very scary moment in the first race. A lot of damage on the right-hand side of the car. He's got damage on the left-hand side of the car this time, but it looks like he's still going to get the job done. 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, doing a fantastic job right here. Yes, like you said, one of the more aggressive guys. You know, when he wants a position, he'll often go in and take it by any means necessary. Doing a fantastic job here today, though. 4 seconds up the road over John Cooper, and we saw that kind of come about with the pit stop strategy, so you can kind of just see what the pace difference was. Right now, we look at Dean Timms. Look like Dean's have a bit of an accident there.
Yeah, he's been off the road and then been back on it again. Let's have a look. That's very deep into McLean's. Back end kicks out. Dean had a big accident at the Nordschleife as well in a previous race with... Oh, hello. Oh, wow. Just loses the back end. Dean had a big one at the Nordschleife, I was going to say, where his centre screen completely blacked out on him. And obviously not an ideal scenario. It was actually just on his way up to Bravery Corner at the Nordschleife in a Porsche Cup car as well. This is also what's happened to him. Oh, there you can see, look, he starts to lose it, floors it, and he's straight into the barrier. I think that screen might have gone again there, you know. Hopefully
Yeah, I
not.
definitely feel like you're right in that situation. Elvis Rankin, though, kind of, decreased Micah's lead by another couple tenths. We'll see if he can kind of make any more headway in the last couple minutes here of the race.
Down the straight they go. Not quite sure what the opinion of Apex Racing Team would be that he's got a Red Bull helmet on, but either way, that's just down to personal preference at the end of the day, bless him. Elvis now pushing very hard indeed. It's great to watch drivers like Elvis really wheel these things about. You can see, like we were talking about before, all of the inputs they put in. You can tell sometimes when drivers are on direct drive wheels as well. Of course, all of that massive force going through the wheel, every single bump, you see the wheel react to it. When drivers are using weaker wheels, you don't really see that much movement from it. But right now, it looks very realistic indeed as Elvis climbs those curves, slides the car, corrects it out of the corners, uses every bit of elevation to his advantage. Look at Coppice, what a tricky corner it is. And you can see he's almost got the wheel straight there as the car's turning right. That's how oversteery they've got this thing set up.
Yeah, it's not just him either. It's all these drivers. There's so much oversteer from car to car in this league.
Yeah, they look like absolute machines around here. The gap is about half a second now between the two of them. I'm wondering how much that's going to go down by. Dino Filippo another second and a half back in third place, but he's on for some more strong points. But these two Apex drivers doing a wonderful, wonderful job at leading this race on home turf as well, of course, here at Donington Park. It is, of course, a British circuit, Apex Racing Team, a British team as well. They have drivers from all over, but their home base is here in the UK. I'm just looking at Garfias's times compared to the driver behind him. He's still getting away from John Cooper, and Yuriksoy still getting away from Kulaga. So it seems like the other two class leads are pretty safe. But this one right now, I don't know, because it keeps going 2 or 3 tenths either way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. You kind of see Janney kind of increase his lead by about 2 or 3 tenths of a second, and then Elvis kind of eats that lead back up. And of course, you look at the two drivers, you can keep seeing the lead fluctuate. And Dino's kind of just stayed consistently behind Elvis right here, not really changing a whole lot.
No, and this is going to be the final lap of the race. So he's got to get it done, basically. Put simply, there needs to be a big run from Elvis Rankin here if he is to get this done. So we'll keep our eye on it. Very, very close between teammates, of course, but right now it looks quite safe in the hands of Michael Yanni. Dino Filippo can only do as much as watch on from the distance. But Michael has done a great, great job. He had a fantastic start as well. So too did Elvis. The two of them jumped straight out of the blocks, made places early on, tried to work together to do it as well. Elvis went down the inside of a lot of people. Michael got a cut back. He sort of sat back, waited to see what else happened, and took the advantage. And he certainly went and ran with it. He was the first guy to go into the race lead, and he's going to be the first guy to the checkered flag. Michael Yanni of Apex Racing Team takes the win ahead of his teammate Elvis Rankin. Dino Filippo takes another very well-earned podium here in the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup US. Fantastic racing between all of them. Jonathan Ouellette and Harry Wills are going to be 4th and 5th, but in what order? Because Jonathan, well, to be fair, it was close a second ago, but Harry's actually dropped back a bit there, hasn't he, Austin?
Yeah, it was extremely close just a second or two ago, but it looks like Harry just made a little bit of a mistake, and that kind of let Jonathan eke out a little bit more lead. Oh, one more big mistake there.
Oh, Harry.
Just before he crosses the line, almost gets a little bit of contact by the other driver behind him. Looks like they're teammates, though. And, of course, Garfias finally comes out of the last corner to take the win in the Pro-Am category. Fantastic drive for him. Fought really hard in the last race and finally finishes the race without any damage to his car. Great job on him. Used some pit strategy to take the lead away from John Cooper. John finally crossing the line as well. And just behind these guys during all that was Errol Urick, so you could see him doing a donut there. Great job from Errol.
Yeah, Errol did an absolute belting job there. Really, really well-deserved class win for him. Number 63 machine takes the win. But Michael Yanni is your overall race winner in that one, everybody. Harry Wills, though, there. Well, I'm not sure the stewards will be too pleased with that one either. Spinning the car around, certainly didn't hold the brakes. He rolled back across the road. I think it was one of his teammates that he made contact with. Did get a hit, but fortunately for both of them, wasn't too much of a hit to cause any severe damage. So, let's take a look at some results then, shall we? As we just mentioned there, Michael Yanni of Apex Racing Academy takes the win. Quarter of a second back, and a few thousandths, is Elvis Rankin for Apex Racing Team. Dino Felipe takes third place. That spin, though, really cost him near the end of the race. Jonathan Ouellette takes his second fourth place of the night. Harry Wills was just a couple of seconds back. That spin at the end not helping him either. And James Pearce having a very frustrating evening. Unfortunately, not finishing that one. Austin, again, if you can, please, buddy, take us through our Pro-Am results.
Yeah, you're winning your Pro-Am category once again. Jas Garfias from Mexico E-Racing, followed by John D. Cooper. Andrew Rasmussen rounds out your podium. Jeremy Littleton and his Golf Racing Porsche comes home fourth, followed by Dan Tenerio in fifth. Bruno Alcaraz comes home sixth with Steven Martinez in seventh, and Dean Timms rounds out your 8-car field.
Thank you very much indeed. And then the biggest class of them all, the AM class. Errol Uriksoy takes a 12.4 second lead to the flag to win here tonight at Donington Park ahead of Logan Vida and Eric Kulaga. Only a couple of tenths between those two drivers across the line. Joseph Smith finishes fourth with two of his teammates directly behind. Drew Newbuyer, who didn't finish the first race, gets the top 5 in this one. Well done to Drew. Travis Kepler, Daniel Florea, Casey Metzger and Andrew Hewson all one lap down. Absolutely gutted for Casey Metzger based on his earlier pace in the race and that fantastic lead that he built up in the opening laps. Andrew Hewson is 9th with Michael Kulaga in 10th, and Jason Bridges is classified 11th, albeit 35 laps down. So, I reckon, to be fair, Austin, it's just about time that we see if we have any drivers waiting for us. I'd potentially like to speak to some of our class winners, and I think it's only right that we take it away with Errol Uriksoy, who ended up winning the AM class in that one by quite the margin, if you'd like to take it away, Austin.
Yeah, Errol, great job today winning that race by, 13-14 seconds at the end. Fantastic job there, man.
Yeah, thanks. That was a race and a half, guys, and I got to give an early shout out to my other Twisted driver teammate Casey. He would have had that. He was pulling away from me, but he got nailed with a penalty. So, but yeah, that was a great race. I kept my head down and kept on going, even though Casey was pulling away, and capitalized on that.
Yeah, we saw you have some early race troubles trying to catch Casey Metzger. What was that like knowing, as soon as he made that mistake, the lead was kind of opened up?
Oh yeah, as soon as he said that, I started pushing because then it got real, and so I started pushing, which I had a couple of moments there where I thought I was going to lose it because the tires were a little mushy after taking on fuel, but. Yeah, the car loves that track. I gotta tell you, it eats up the tires, but when it settles in, it really settles in around that track.
You guys got me?
We do. I think we may have a slight connection issue.
Yeah, massive internet troubles. Looks like you got me back though. Errol, once again, fantastic job there at the end. Is there anyone you want to thank?
Yeah, give a shout out to my wife who lets me do this week in, week out, and shout out to the team and to the race organizers and all the great drivers taking part every week.
Well, we thank you so much for your time. There is another driver in the AM category waiting in the wings. Fantastic job tonight from Eric Kulaga. Eric, great job bringing your Porsche home on the podium here.
Oh, that was a disaster. It's terrible 2 races.
Well, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but you did kind of salvage them, so you can't be too upset.
Did you get some good entertainment out of the first one? It was a mess. I mean, I guess me and Casey are gonna have to talk. I don't know. We had some issues, but I haven't looked at it. But yeah, it was the first race was bad. The second race was going bad, and then everybody else went worse. So I think that's what happened.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, though, not too bad of a result. Another podium kind of on your resume for the rest of the season here. Talk us through kind of, your mindset after, having, as you called it, maybe not such a good sprint race. But you go into the endurance part of tonight kind of knowing there's a little bit more left in the tank.
Oh, I used the word disaster, not so good. But yeah, no, it was. I mean, just get in and see what you can salvage. I started up front, and I got turned around early in that one too. I made a slight mistake, and I got turned around early, and then I was just kind of driving, and everybody else made more mistakes. So I mean, I'll take it. It wasn't my finest effort, but it is what it is, and it's a good finish. So I mean, we'll take the points and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. You talk about points. How are the points looking? Is it that time of the season where you kind of start points racing, or are you still kind of just mostly focused on outright race to race pace?
I don't think I have the pace at this time around. I think there's some guys faster than me. So we've put all our efforts into the 2022 car, the GT3. So this one we're just gonna have fun with and see what happens. But I'm putting a little more focus in the GT3 and see if I get better in there. This one I think is kind of slipping away, so we'll see what happens. There may be some penalties from today because me and Casey got together a bunch. We'll see who they deem is at fault for these. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
Very much so. Eric, is there anyone you want to thank for your bottom step of the podium run today?
Oh, I do want to thank Race Anywhere, the sponsors, Spartan. They hooked me up. My rig came from the season 1 of the GT3 championship, so that came this week. Very cool, very excited. We're assembling it. It should be good to go in the next couple of days. Super stoked for that. So very cool. Thank Martin and thank Race Anywhere.
Yeah, once again, we want to thank you for your time. Once again, congratulations on your podium finish, Eric.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, really great battles all the way up and down the field through all the different categories. Once again, fantastic race. Donington certainly disappointing, and this league never does.
Apologies, everybody. I just realised everything I said there was completely muted to those watching. But basically, just saying that everyone did really well. But thank you very much, Austin. Absolute pleasure as always. Thank you, everybody that has been watching again with us tonight. Thank you, of course, to my co-commentator, Austin Belkey. I've been Chaz Draycott. This has been the Race Anywhere Porsche Cup US, and this has been Absolute Sim Racing. We look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. But for now, have a wonderful night. We'll see you again.